Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Real Talk with Ben podcast. Hope you had an amazing week, and even if you haven't had an amazing week, I hope that coming here can give you some encouragement, maybe just give you a few laughs, maybe hear a cool story. Whatever it does, I hope that it really does not only bring you encouragement, but maybe bring you closer to God and maybe bring you some of that encouragement that you need in order to keep pushing forward in this race we call life. And if you're new, my name is Ben, and this is my podcast where I talk about life. I talk about ministry. I talk about things that happen in the world, really just anything that comes to my heart that I want to share with you all, ultimately trying to bring glory to God in everything I do. And so with that, let's jump into this week. And as we jump into this, you know me, I normally kind of try to plan these, episodes with some type of theme, with some type of goal in mind. Obviously, last week sharing the news about being engaged and all that, that was awesome. And I shared about the job a little bit, and it got me thinking. I'm busy right now, obviously planning a wedding, helping plan a wedding, helping, and also preparing for this new job and everything that has to be done with that, and traveling to the school and such like that. And I never really stepped back and really thought of why am I going back into teaching? I get that question quite a bit, especially now that I'm going back into the teaching world, is why teaching? Why go back to teaching? And why specifically this school, GGIS is the school I'll be teaching at, why specifically this school in this place and everything like that? And I guess it kind of covers, three main topics, right? Three main goals, or statements of the reason why I went back. And number one is the love for it. Number two is the mission behind it. And number three is kind of the goal with it, or the reasoning behind it. And I guess I really want to start with that first one, the love for it. Even serving here as a missionary, and I always have to put a little asterisk because it hasn't been a normal year of ministry that normally I would have experienced here at Word Life Hungry. But even as I say that, it's a normal year that God wanted me to go through. It's the year He wanted me to go through. And even as I was been serving here, and even the little interaction I've had with kids through camp and stuff like that, the love and the drive to want to be more involved with helping these kids understand not only the gospel, but understand who they are as a person, helping them reach the potential is something that I love about teaching. I always think back as when I was a kid. I wasn't the smartest kid. I wasn't the most popular kid. I struggled in a lot of different areas, but there were specific teachers throughout my whole childhood into middle school and into high school. At each stage, there were specific teachers. I can think of elementary. I could think of Mrs. Zirkle and Mrs. Weisgerber and Mrs. Relaford and Mr. Westfall, and some of these teachers that really took the time to help me when I was struggling, when I didn't understand something. I got to middle school, had Mrs. Catlin, trying to think, Mrs. Spencer, Mr. Spencer, Miss Coder. There's a lot of these teachers as well. And then in high school, thinking Mr. Lamb, Mr. Linksweiler, and most of you out here have no idea who these people are. But these are the people that helped me get past some of the struggles, being discouraged, thinking I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough to make it to college or even to continue on with what I was loving to do. Then you get to college and it's the same thing. I had professors that helped me grow as a teacher, that helped me grow as a person. The love for teaching doesn't just come from conversations, watching a movie, reading a book. The love for teaching comes from example. And when I went to this profession, I wanted to get in this profession as a college student, I remember thinking back to those teachers that had an impact on my life. I started thinking back to all the camps that I've been to that I helped serve out here at Word Life Hungry, even camps back home and sports camps and such. all those attributed to the idea that I can have an impact on some of these kids' life. I can be that teacher that someone was for me. I can be that teacher that helps this young boy or young girl realize that they have potential. That not only because they are made uniquely by God, and not only because they are loved by God, but because they have desires, they have goals, they have dreams they want to reach. I always say the worst thing you can tell a kid is tell them they can't reach their goal because it's too crazy. You know, when I told people that at some point I wanted to live overseas or to teach overseas or anything like that in college, people thought I was just a homeboy. Couldn't make it out there in the world outside of Ohio. Coming here has been the best decision of my life, and it led me back to teaching. So if anybody asks why teaching, why go back to teaching, it's because of the love that I have for it. I left the idea of teaching to come here be a missionary because honestly, I was confused. I didn't know if I wanted to teach. I didn't know if I had it in me. I remember spending months on these tests you have to take for your license and thinking, am I good enough? These tests are they showing me if I'm a good teacher? So getting back to this school that I'll be teaching at, I'm not fully into the teaching. I'll be teaching a few days a week, but I'll also be doing other media stuff, IT stuff, maybe teach Bible here and there. Who knows what I'll be doing? But it's a way for me to get back doing what I love. And that is helping kids understand that they are loved by God. And most importantly, that they can do something with their lives. They put their hearts in the right place. So as I took this job and as I decided this is a place for me, I looked at the opportunity to be in a place that I love, in this country that I love, and to still be there. And obviously, I'll get to the third point. There's reasons behind why this is a great fit for me. But it just made sense because of the love I had for it and how much I missed it. I truly missed teaching kids of all ages, interacting with the parents and helping them understand their kid more. So I truly love the idea of teaching. So that's why I went back to teaching. Second thing is the mission behind it. And you might be asking, Ben, what is the mission behind it? Isn't the mission just to teach the kids and to help them grow, like you just said? Yeah, but it's my own mission field. Now, yes, I'm not going to be raising support to be a teacher. This school pays salary. And no, I didn't join this school because it's pays salary, because as we all know, as teachers, you don't get paid a lot, but that's not the reason I get into it. I stated the reasons earlier about the love for it, but the mission behind it. If I've learned anything over here in Hungary over the past 11 months, is that missions doesn't have to be what we see it. It's what God puts us in it, or into, or yeah, what God lays in front of us. That's a better wording for it. Because if I truly believed what I thought missions was going to be this year, was going to be in the schools, helping run English classes, doing camp, maybe doing a few videos here and there. But that all changed. I basically became all of media, was really what I did. I helped with camp, things like that. So I learned that mission isn't necessarily it's not necessarily what you expect. It's what you find within the job or the thing that you are doing. For me, being a teacher is one of the biggest mission fields you can have. You get to interact with parents, with other staff members, with maybe a local community, but most of all, the students. My goal has always been that the students see who I live for. Maybe I won't tell them directly, but depending on the school that I'm at. But they start asking questions of, why is Mr. Bowden different? Why does he have a different tone to how he lives his life? So the mission behind teaching is not necessarily just to get the A's and the B's and the C's, but in reality, to get the true A, B, and C of believing in Christ. And it might not happen by my hand or by another teacher's hand. I think that's something that we forget. I think sometimes we think that we have to be the person that gets them saved. We never were the person that's going to get them saved. It was God sending his son to die on the cross. We are just a tool. We are just a simple tool in the process of the Christian life that hopefully people see what God has done in our lives, that they might ask the same questions that we have asked. So that's the mission behind it. So why did I get into teaching? It's the mission behind the goal of teaching, not the basic goal, the bigger goal. Finally, the goal with it, or kind of the reasoning behind it. And this kind of is a different thing. I couldn't really find a third one that sounded cool, so I kind of went with this one. But the idea, the fact that Rebecca and I are getting married here in August, late August, and at that time, obviously I had to have a job of some sort, since we had decided to live in not live in America, but live in Hungary, which I'm totally for. Do not mind not living in America. I've love it here in Hungary. It's gonna be hard to leave her here in the next month or so. It really is. But it's going to be good for us over these next couple months, as I get stuff figured out in America, and then when I come back to obviously teach in Hungary. And so that's a big fit for us, is that it's a great place. Like I tell people, I think there was a point about in June or July when I truly realized I want to get back into teaching. And I think on top of that, also, nothing with raising support. I think, being a full-time missionary is for some people. And I think I just was realizing that it might not be for me, at least at the moment. Rebecca and I have talked about in the future at some point, maybe getting back into ministry. But I always say that you're never not in ministry. There's always ministry. There's always a church to serve at. There's always organizations like Word of Life that you can come back to and serve. And I think that was a big thing. Is I think raising support was really challenging. It was definitely tiring, and it really wore me out. But I realized that being able to have a steady income coming in, especially being married early on, and for her to be able to work and kind of build that up and then see from there. This school, it's every 2 years you reevaluate, and that's what I'm going to look at and see where God leads us and what he sees for us next. At some point, I know I want to go back to school at some point and get some type of degree. Who knows what that's going to be? But that's obviously down in the future. But honestly, I think on top of all of that, I think the idea of being able to have a job longer than a year. I joke with people that I've never actually had a job for longer than a year, unless you count being a student assistant coach on the basketball team at Cedarville, which it's not all year round, so it's kind of hard to, I guess it is all year round, but I guess that sort of counts as a job. But this is the first, I guess, real job that I'll have outside of school, outside of Cedarville, that is longer than a year. I guess I just feel like it's time to settle down and to, like I said, go back to the love I have, go back to this idea of teaching and being around kids all the time. I think that's been the biggest thing I've missed, is having those conversations, those weird conversations that I'm sure if you're a teacher, you remember. And if you know me personally, I love to talk and I love to chatter. And I always think back about, man, I wonder what my teachers thought of me as I would go to their desk and have conversations with them that probably had nothing to do with pretty much anything about that day or anything like that. I somehow miss that. I miss having those conversations with kids. The little first graders coming up and telling you about their dramatic day they had the other day. There's just something about it, and I miss it, and I miss those conversations. But again, I think to cut that short is that it just was a perfect fit. God opened the door, and I always say that I'm going to go through those doors that God opens. I talked about last week the closing of a chapter, opening of a new one. This is a new chapter. Another journey. Uh, People ask me if I'm nervous. I'm like, I don't think I'm necessarily nervous. I think I'd be more nervous if it was in the classroom full time, teaching every single day, all day. Um, I don't know if I could go, it'll be almost a year and a half. Yeah. No, it would almost be 2 years since I had been in the classroom by the time I actually teach a class next fall or this fall. It would have been a while since I had taught a class. And I think if I had to jump into I think I'd be fine. It would just be a lot harder to uh, enjoy the aspect of it. And so this is kind of what is happening. And I guess I wanted to take today to really just explain the reasoning behind why I decided to go back into teaching. Why did I decide? And I want to make this very clear. There is nothing about Word of Life that like scared me away or really made me not want to come back. I think we all have different things that we wish would change, or you have that at every workplace, and it's very common. But it's nothing people did to me here. It's nothing like that. I don't want that to seem like I didn't want to stay here longer, because then some might ask, well, if you're coming back to Hungary, why don't you stay here longer? And again, I think it goes back to having a job that has that consistent income coming through. And I think just knowing that this was the right time to move on. And I'm not putting a no to never coming back. I tell people that here all the time. I'm not putting a no to coming back here. But right now, I feel that as if God is really put on both Rebecca and I that we want to spread our wings, spread our ministry in other areas. We'll definitely come back to Word of Life Hungary. We'll definitely help out here and camps and stuff like that. So I guess a long explanation today of why I decided to get back into teaching, why specifically this school. I guess I also should say it was really just my interview. It just felt like the right place to. I remember walking in there and feeling like I was already part of the family, feeling like I was already part of that culture, like just the way they were treating me. They barely knew me. And that really, excuse me. There we go. That really sealed the deal for me. And I just think it's going to be a great place for me to grow as a teacher and grow as a person. And so I'm really, really excited. And I definitely know you guys will be joining along the journey as I start that. I'm sure I'll have stories to share or things that are challenging, things like that. So definitely keep me in your prayers. This is definitely a bigger challenge. This is a change for me. Not only getting married, which is a huge change, but obviously getting married then living over here. It's one thing to live for a year knowing you're going back home, but the challenge of living here, knowing that this is your life, this is the place you're living, working for at least the next 2 years, and to see from there. And so continue to pray for me and Rebecca as well. It's definitely a challenge at times, but at the same time, it's going to be so amazing. And we are super, super excited to start this new chapter of both of our lives and just start this new, yeah, a new chapter. And it's super exciting. So I hope that you have enjoyed today's episode. Maybe you got a little, I know it's not as exciting as last week's episode, but I just thought it's a good time to explain why I decided to get back into teaching before I get all the questions. I'll just point you to this episode, and it gives you all the details of everything and the reasonings behind it. So once again, I want to remind you, if you're loving these episodes of the podcast, and especially if you listen on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, go ahead and subscribe or favorite it. Make sure it's there at at your homepage. So that way you can pull it up every single week when you listen. If you're watching on YouTube, first off, thank you so much for watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. This will allow myself to see just how much you're enjoying these, but this will also allow other people to see this. Go ahead and share this podcast episode. I tell people the more people that see this, maybe the more people get encouraged or maybe challenged a little bit. Either way, this reaches more people, and that's what I aim to do. That's the goal of the Bound Experience, is to reach more people. Goal of this podcast as well. So once again, I'll remind you of this, that we serve an amazing God, that he is faithful. We can trust him. And as always, we'll talk next time.